Okay. I understand the group here, or at least some of the members of the group here, are beginning chanting in a serious way and would like to hear something more about developing your chanting. If that's meaningful for all of you, that's what the topic is. This is a summary presentation that came at the end of 2019. We have every year a Festival of the Holy Name event in Chicago during the 4th of July weekend. And this was the final presentation for that event. What's coming up is some summary points of the whole weekend. But when you're trying to improve chanting, this is what we encounter. A mind that doesn't stand still. The flickering mind is taken from, or it's discussed in Bhagavad Gita in chapter 6, where Arjuna says it's very difficult to control the mind due to its flickering and unsteady nature. So anyone that's really tried to chant attentively or do any kind of meditation, you know what the flickering mind is like. And the candle flame is wavering because of the wind. And if you want a candle flame to stop wavering, you take it out of the wind. And then it's steady. So those things that are the wind that's blowing the flame or causing the mind to go here and there, it's our absorption in the temporary. And when you're absorbed in the temporary, there's these two sankalpa, vikalpa, or accepting and rejecting functions of the mind. Like red light, green light. Accept, reject. And the nature of the mind is, according to Bhagavad Gita and our experience, the mind proposes something. Or the mind contemplates something and then proposes something to go forward or modify it or change it or fix it or something. And even as you're going down the path of contemplating that, it starts to change. No, that's not the best, and then it keeps changing and keeps changing. It's the sankalpa vikalpa function of the mind is endless. Here's a nice teaching found in Krishna's teaching to Uddhava, 11th canto. I'll read 2 verses. Having awakened faith in the narrations of my glories, being disgusted with all material activities, knowing that all sense gratification leads to misery, but still being unable to renounce all sense enjoyment, my devotee should remain happy and worship me with great faith and conviction, even though he is sometimes engaged in sense enjoyment. My devotees know that all sense gratification leads to a miserable result, and he sincerely repents such activities. There's a screen up here, and if you come up the stairs, you'll be able to see the screen. If you don't want to see the screen, you can stay right where you are. Front row seat, look at that. But there's the screen. Okay. When the senses, when the mind is drawn to something, it has it's centered around like and dislike. I'm attracted to something, or I'm not pleased with something. It's an enjoyment of the senses in principle. In material life is centered on that. Enjoyment, we want to enjoy. That's natural for souls to want to enjoy. So we're pleasure-seeking beings. But when pleasure is thought of as the senses contacting sense objects, that's when the mind flickers. Pretty simple. And so some people let's shut the mind off. Do a kind of meditation that just shuts the mind off. Anyone that's tried to do that finds the mind doesn't so easily shut off. And even if the mind becomes quieter during that meditation, as soon as the restraint of the mind is done, what happens? It starts to get cluttered again. Meaning it's not a natural state. So what's a natural state? Where one isn't distracted. The natural state is where the mind is flowing towards or directed towards, because the intelligence can give direction to the mind, directed towards that which is eternal and unchanging. Well, that's nice. What's eternal and unchanging? What's eternal and unchanging is the spiritual realm. While there's variety, it's nonetheless not changing. There's a whole philosophy of what does change mean and what does not changing mean, and I won't go there because it's interesting, but it's not the main point here. That which is eternal, there's the Krishna's form, and Krishna's form is eternal. And with our senses engaged in the service of the spiritual form of Rishikesh, the master of the senses, then the senses become purified and act spiritually, and even there's variety within the spiritual realm. It's still absolute. That's the recommended form of meditation, meditating on transcendence, starting with sound. How do we enter into that realm? Answers through sound, Shabda Brahman. Couple more slides. One of the best ways to help get fixed in sound vibration is a vow, or having some regulation in your involvement with that sound. The image on the screen shows the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, and there's a nice song, an Ashtaka, about those 6 Goswamis, and this is one of the lines. Sankhya Purvaka Nama Gana Natibi. Although they were perfectly realized persons, to set example, Sankhya Purvaka Nama, they kept a vow of how many mantras or how many rounds on their beads. I mean, one thing you see that's common for all of them, they're dressed pretty simply, but they all have a bead bag. And in their bead bag is beads, and their hand is on their beads, and they're chanting most of the day and keeping count, Nama Vrata. There's power in that regulation. There's the mode of goodness is one of the characteristics of the mode of goodness is being regulated. It's right in Bhagavad Gita. Regulated in the time that you rest, the time you get up, regulated in your eating habits, the time you eat, the quantities that you eat, regulated in your being clean, and regulated in your habits. Regulation promotes goodness. It's the opposite. Irregulation takes you away from goodness. Starts from passion, and very quickly it's ignorance. So regulation has power, and regulation in chanting of the name has power. It can be a small number, medium number, large number. Regulation has power. And the great example-setting acharyas, they showed us by their example. Here's a nice verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Smartavya satatam vishnur vismartavyo najantu chit. That didn't give the whole. Sarvavidi niseda shur etayor eva kinkara. That's the rest of the verse. It's from Padma Purana. And the teaching in Padma Purana is there's an injunction and a prohibition. Always think of Krishna, of Vishnu. Never forget Vishnu. And it says all the sarve vidhi, all the regulations, ishedhashur, they're subordinate to this one principle. Etayor eva kinkara. They're kinkaras, they're servants of this principle. Always remember, never forget. So whether there's regulation or there's do's and don'ts, it's for remembering Krishna, remembering Vishnu. In his commentary on this verse, from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada writes, of all the regulative principles, the spiritual master's order to chant at least 16 rounds is most essential. Now, someone that's beginning may not be chanting 16 rounds, they may be chanting 1 or 2 or something. And whatever that something is, best if it's every day. It can be more, but some minimum every day, and then after maintaining that for some time, one may want to increase. But the quote here is to indicate it's very important. If the most essential, or most essential, is regulation and chanting. There's a little story. Everybody likes stories. Not so long ago, during our lifetime, maybe when we were younger, or maybe when I was younger and you were not born yet or something, there was a Sadhaka in Vrindavan. His name is there, Sankarshan Baba. And he was very, very fixed in chanting his Gayatri mantras and the Mahamantra. And as he got older, it became difficult. He became very ill. It was more difficult. And he just decided, this body is useless, I can't keep my vrata. And he just gave up his body like Grandfather Bhishma. Because he was so fixed in his vrata. Now, where his soul went when he just relinquished his body, one can guess. Because he was fixed in the holy names of Hari. So he went to Hari. In Haridham, in the spiritual realm. Here's a nice painting of Raganathas Goswami on the left side. The painting shows his absorption in chanting by the side of Radhakund was so total, so he totally immersed in chanting that he didn't even notice that a tiger came to drink some water from Radhakund while he was chanting. And Sanatan Goswami was watching, and he told him later, this isn't good. The ability to stay connected to one's heart space requires steadiness in our faith and practice. Both words are underlined. There's faith to get there, and there's practice that also keeps you there. Supposing somebody becomes liberated, they might be sad. They don't need to chant anymore because they're liberated. But they chant because they're liberated. They're not chanting to get something. They're chanting because that's their connection with Nama Prabhu, the personality that makes themselves available to us. It's said about Raganathas that his vows were like lines on a stone. Pashanera Reka. Lines on a stone don't move. So he lived to be 90 years old. And he kept his vows. Vows not only in chanting, he had a vow how many times he would pay obeisances to Vaishnavas, how many times he would pay obeisance to the deities, because he was living at Radhakund, there were multiple temples, and he would go around and pay obeisances before all the deities. When he got really, really old, once he got down, he couldn't get back up again. And people would see him lying before the deity, and they'd help him get up and say, "You don't need to do this anymore." And he'd smile and go to the next temple and pay his obeisances, because he was very fixed in his vows. Not for the sake of becoming lifted, but for the sake of the vow itself. He was on another platform. Here's a similar painting, and you see there's Raganathas again, and he's chanting japa again by the side of Radhakund, and you notice the upper part of his body is burned because he was chanting in the mid-heat of summer. And so Radharani saw him chanting, absorbed. He didn't even notice his body was burning. She came with her cloth, held it to block the rays of the sun until the heat of the midday sun diminished, and then she went away. And behind both of them, that's Sanatana Goswami, who saw the whole thing. And then he scolded Raghunath. "What are you doing? Our life is to serve Radharani, and you're so renounced. Radharani is serving you. This isn't good. Please build a bhajan kutir so we don't have this difficulty." Because he was not inclined, because he was so renounced. But he agreed. So his bhajan kutir is right by the side of Radhakund and Shyamakund. Abhyasa yoga yuktena is a phrase that comes from Bhagavad Gita. Abhyasa means practice. Yuktena means to be engaged in yoga practice through fixing the mind on Krishna. Cetasa nanya-gamina, that's from the same verse. Nanya, na-anya-gamina, there's no other thing going on when, in the course of practice and practice and practice, when it's really sincere, and when there's absorption, there's nothing else going on. No, to get to the place where there's nothing else going on, it takes some practice. And it takes some faith. It takes some faith to continue to practice. So, cetasa nanya-gamina, without being deviated. What's the process? Cultivate the mind's consistently attending to the name in a pleasing, submissive service mood. This is the teaching of Rupa Goswami, to be in the mood of service to the name, because the name and the person named in transcendental life, or the object named, are non-different. It's from another Padma Purana verse. You ready for the Padma Purana verse? We saved you a spot. Look at this. You got to see the screen. Okay, good. Good. Okay. You ready for the verse? Nama Chintamani Krishnas Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purna Shuddho Nitya Mukto Abhina Tvam Nama Namino. We discussed this yesterday evening. Nama and Nami. I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but I know what that is. There's the name and there's the object named. Nama and Nami. And there's the relationship of non-difference, or abhina. Bhina means different and abhina means non-different. The relationship of non-difference between the name and the object named. So because the name is the object, Krishna's name is Krishna, or Nama Prabhu, or Nama Rupa, the form of the name or the personality of the name. By attending to the person in the form of the name, we're immediately in contact with Krishna, the person. Now, the mind, the material mind, is restless. The flickering mind. It doesn't attend to the name so readily. But that's because we think of it as something material. Supposing the bell rang and Krishna walked in. What will we do? We probably wouldn't even know what to do. But he makes himself available through his name. Instantly. Even unqualified people. Most innocent people, little children. He's more little than you are, though. Do you like saying Krishna's name? What's your name?
Krishna.
Do you know who Krishna is? Okay. When you say Krishna's name, he's present. Just you say his name and he's present. You didn't even have to ring the bell. You just say Krishna's name and he's present. We don't have that realization because our mind is on the material platform. But when one's mind becomes cleansed, then one will realize and experience Krishna's presence through his name. And how to get there, that's what's being suggested here. The process is a mood of submissive service to the name. It's a meandering process. This image is meant to show a path somewhere in a forest, and it's the path is overgrown. There's not very clear, but somewhere on the other side there's a little light. Just keep walking. The path of bhakti, or the path of any kind of yoga practice that elevates consciousness, it moves like that, so gradually, slowly. I had this experience one summer. I took a little break, believe it or not. And I went to a place where there was a lake behind us. And I was sitting on the porch of the house, and I got distracted because I saw this mother duck. So I got a picture. And there were something like 8 ducklings following behind her. And she went left, and they went left. She went right, they went right. There was one little guy in the back, and he kind of was playful. He waited till all the other ducks went 10 yards ahead, and then he moved his little legs quickly and caught up with everybody and smiled and laughed. But they were just following Mother Duck, little ducklings. And we're like that. We have great souls who are realized, know the scripture, and have realization of how to reach that stage of spiritual purity. And the chanting of the holy name is again and again and again recommended, particularly for this age. So we just follow, like those little ducklings, follow the mother duck. And she'll take care of us. The holy name will take care of us, and we'll get to our destination. With that faith and with that regular following, then the practice of sadhana bhakti becomes effective. And now we're going to come to a close. There's some points. This is some summary points from the whole presentation during this 2019 Festival of the Holy Name. Here's the first point. They're required for the bhakti process is preliminary faith. The Sanskrit is adau shraddha. And from that adau shraddha, then Krishna sees there's this little faith, and Krishna will send someone, sadhu, to assist that person with little faith go further with their faith. And then with that faith and sadhu sangha comes chanting. And with chanting comes eventually some vow. And then there's this recommendation of how that vow should be executed with reverence, with service mood, with a humble service mood, reverential mood towards the name, because the name is Krishna. It's a good idea. It's a good idea before you begin chanting, orient your heart towards the activity you're about to do. Some kind of a prayer to the name, some kind of a alignment of the heart to the name and the activity. Prayer is very effective. Here's a verse that's taken from Patanjali Yoga Sutras, where it's describing what sadhana is, or what abhyasa is, because we used that word abhyasa shortly before. There's 4 parts. Dirga kala means for a long period of time. Something is a practice if you do it over a long period of time. And then it's color-coded up there. Nairantarya. Nairantarya means uninterruptedly. It's not like sometimes and sometimes not. So over a long period of time, something that you do every day. And then satkara is with reverence. Or satkara can mean you have some faith. It's going to take you to where you want to go. And there's a regard for that which is going to take you where you want to go. So satkarya, reverence. There's some other words in this phrase, asheshita, that's cultivated or practiced. At the last line, dridha bhumi, gives you firm ground, firm standing. So this is his definition. A yoga sutra, what's a yoga practice? It has these 3 things. Prolonged period of time, each day uninterruptedly, and it's not like, anyway, not that you do and then you stop, and then you do and then you stop, but then it's not practice. It's not a 0, but it's not practice. And there's this attitude of reverence that's very important. Practice becomes firmly established when it has been cultivated uninterruptedly and with devotion over a prolonged period of time. That's a definition or a translation of that phrase. It's a really good guide for any kind of yoga discipline or any kind of spiritual discipline. A good time of the day, this is a time management topic, a good time of the day to do your spiritual practices universally is Brahma Muhurta. Brahma Muhurta. So what's Brahma Muhurta? A Muhurta, one Muhurta is 48 minutes. There's so many Muhurtas in the course of a full day. And Brahma Muhurta begins 48 minutes before the 48 minutes before the sun rises. So 48 times 2 minus the time that the sun rises. So like this morning, the sun rose at 7:34. So it begins sometime around 6 o'clock. And any time before then is also very nice, but it's especially, any spiritual practice is especially effective during the Brahma Muhurta, so early in the morning. And this is another time management image that I've been asked in many places, corporate places particularly, business schools particularly, to speak about time management. So here's a 3-minute time management lesson that can be expanded. there's a jar. And I'm going to ask you two girls a question. You ready? Supposing, there's a jar on the table, we put a jar. And over here is a big rock. And over here is some smaller rocks. And over there is some pebbles. And over here is some sand. 4 things. And I tell you that everything will fit inside the jar. So now the question is, what goes in first? Everything's going to fit. What goes in first? He's checking out to see what your answer is going to be. No, I want the children too. You want to guess? You don't want to get a wrong answer, so you're not saying anything. Should I give a hint? The hint is, if you put the sand in last, it's going to easily fit between the spaces. So you don't put the sand in first, you put the sand in last. Right? So now ask the question again. What goes in first? You got it. The big rock. And it all fit, assuming it'll all fit, the big rock goes first. So in time management, what's the big rock? There's the big rock. What's time management? It's you put the big rock first. And what's the big rock? The big rock is that which stabilizes your whole day. The most important thing in your whole day, for that matter, the most important thing in your whole life is awakening higher consciousness, becoming a self-realized person. That's the human life mission. That's the big rock. And that which accomplishes that most effectively, that's the big rock. And you do that every day and every day and every day, and you will find the effectiveness of what you do the rest of the day increases because your consciousness has increased. Or conversely, if you don't, or you become sloppy, then your day is all messy and complicated. There was a time when I had more discretionary time than I do now. And I requested those who wanted to do so to make a sadhana chart, a weekly sadhana chart, and send me the chart once a week. And those that did it, kept the chart, had consistent realization. What I just said was their realization. When my sadhana is strong, my day goes smoothly. When my sadhana is distracted and interrupted or somehow something, the rest of the day is really a challenge. And it's like a one-to-one relationship. So if you want to have a wholesome life, productive life, you want to do well in school, and, be happy, identify the big rock. And one of the best places to put that big rock is during the Brahma Muhurta, early in the morning. Whatever early in the morning may mean for different people, early in the morning. You can hold to the end, is that all right? I won't go away, I promise. Then there's this word that we discussed earlier during this festival of holy name, Shannanapati. And apati means having attained. Sharanagati means attaining, moving to the place of Sharana. So Shannanapati, this is Bhaktivinoda Thakur writing. Shraddha, that's this faith principle that we talked about, number 1, which is endowed with ruchi for bhakti, culminates in the symptoms of bhakti. Ruchi is you have a taste. You like. You like. And whatever that is, whatever it is that you like, you connect it with pleasing Krishna, and it has a certain taste. It's like cooking. Or, I'll give a little example. This is a nice example. Some years ago, a friend of mine, a godbrother, started a study program in Vrindavan during the Kartik month. He called it the Vrindavan Institute for Higher Education. For the whole month of Kartik, different teachers taught different topics. Students would sign up so they could attend, they could be in Vrindavan during the entire Kartik month. And I signed up because I wanted to be in Vrindavan for the month of Kartik, but I'm service-minded. I couldn't just be in Vrindavan without some service. So I was teaching. I taught some courses. One of the courses I taught, I just mentioned the other day, was a month-long course on the teachings of Lord Chaitanya as given by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Dasamula Tattva. Anyway, while I was there, I asked another devotee who was a Prabhupada disciple, whose name was Vibhu Chaitanya. Vibhu Chaitanya was an elder man, didn't speak much English, and he had a back problem. He had a back problem such that he couldn't stand up straight, and his arms were out behind his back, and he was kind of leaned over, looked like a bird getting ready to take flight. But he was a very special person, and exactly on time he would come in and pay obeisances before each of the three altars. He didn't get down because he couldn't get back up again, but he did his paying obeisances. And then he went into the deity kitchen. He didn't come out of the deity kitchen until the noon offering was completed, because he was cook. And so I requested him if he could give me a little leaf cup of Mahaprasad vegetable from the noon offering to Radha Shamasundar. So it was arranged. And every day, that was my lunch. And I'm not used to eating that small amount. But because I was eating his cooking, which was filled with devotion, that's all I required for a whole month. It wasn't like an artificial austerity or something. It was very satisfying. It was satisfying because of his devotion. I've had Mahaprasadam before, offered to the deity, but it was very special. So, same activity of cooking and eating the results of one's cooking after offering it to Krishna. There's a qualitative difference. There's a qualitative difference if there's a taste for that activity, a taste for the devotion within that activity. So this is a stage, this is helping, these are little points to help us grow, go further in the chanting process. Shannanapati, attaining the place of shelter in the holy name, where there's faith that has now become matured, whereas there's taste in bhakti. We discussed during this 2019 Festival of the Holy Name a little teaching that the ear conquers the mind. This was a reminder, and now I'll share with you what that teaching was. Distraction, like the flickering mind topic. How do you stop it? How do you stop the mind from being distracted? And Bhaktisiddhanta, Prabhupada's spiritual master, explains this way. If you try, you don't have to try, but if you do try to have the mind absorbed in the holy name, you'll find the mind is continuing to be distracted. How the mind can be conquered is by hearing. It's pretty simple, but he explains that when there's hearing, the ear is actually more powerful than the mind. the mind thinks I'm the king. I'm in charge here. And wherever I say, that's what goes. So you hear, smell, taste, etc., see, based upon the dictates of the mind. But when the hearing takes place, that hearing is so powerful, the ear conquers the mind. The mind becomes conquered. And the mind then submits to the ear. Actually, you're more powerful. Now, there's a teaching given by Rupa Goswami that says essentially the same. When the holy name enters the courtyard of the heart, you vibrate it, you hear it. When it enters the courtyard of the heart, the mind becomes stunned, and the senses become inert. It's the same. It's if you want to have your mind become conquered or become less distracted or completely not distracted, it's resting upon the ear. The ear is actually more powerful than the mind. That was a lesson that we discussed during that weekend. Another image showing hearing the sound of Krishna's name. Another subset of this is an alignment lesson. This is a drawing from Satchidananda Swami's writings, and it shows like a castle, a king's castle that has 3 doorways. 1, 2, 3. Body, mind, and heart. And say, you pass through those 3 gates, and inside that's where the king's treasury is. So the treasure in this metaphor is Krishna, and the Krishna connection. And there needs to be alignment with the body, proper posture, etc., of the body when you're chanting. And then the mind properly aligned with the activity of chanting, and the heart. That means one of the meanings can be, the intention, the sankalpa behind your chanting. So not mechanical, but from the heart. And we discussed this at length during the seminar. So this is just a reminder. But you may find this to be a useful tool. Some part of my chanting this morning was with this principle in mind, and it's a powerful principle. Body, mind, and heart in alignment. And if they're out of alignment, it's uncomfortable and it's distracted. And it's in alignment. And then the treasure of connecting with Krishna's holy name is accessed. From that comes a realization. We mentioned this already. The name and the person named, or nama and nami, are non-different. Abhina, tvam. Tvam means having the quality of, or somethingness. Abhina tvam, nama nami no. So the name is a person. We had a whole seminar session on the name as a person and how to get that realization. It has everything to do with the heart, the courtyard of the heart, if you remember. When the name enters the courtyard of the heart, the mind becomes stunned and the senses become inert. And therefore chant from the heart. This is part of the alignment message. Chant from the heart. What does that mean? Chant from the heart. There's a purpose behind your chanting. It's not just a mechanical something, like a vending machine. You put some coins in, you pull a lever, and down comes love of God. It's not a mechanical process. It's a from the heart process. So there must be, to go further in your chanting, the purpose behind the chanting, you remind yourself, because otherwise it can become mechanical or hackneyed, or like young people often say, it's boring. Right? Do you chant? Sometimes. And if you chant calling for a relationship with Krishna, you'll feel something. If you chant just because somebody said to chant, it doesn't have the same experience. And this is the final message, number 8. Develop your relationship with the living name. Now, we spent some time discussing the living name. Means, again, it's not just a sound, but it's a person. A person. We had some discussion. It was with the Chinese devotees this morning. Our time in the morning is their time in the evening. So I'm taking them through each of the 6 Goswamis with lessons of the life and teachings of each of the 6 Goswamis. And one of those lessons this morning, which was their evening, was Srila Prabhupada's room in Vrindavan before he came to America, where he wrote and printed the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam in 3 volumes. He was feeling unqualified for the mission that his spiritual master asked of him, to go to the Western countries, one older man, and deliver Lord Chaitanya's message. And how was it possible? He didn't have any money, he didn't have any contacts, he didn't have anything. When he left, he had 14 rupees. And you can't even use rupees in America. He had nothing. Anyway, while he was in Vrindavan at the Radha Damodar temple, his quarters were just alongside where the temple is. Up there is the altar, and over there on the side was his rooms. And he was praying to Rupa Goswami, whose samadhi is in the courtyard over on the right side. How is this possible? He disclosed later, Rupa Goswami appeared before him. No, generations separating, but he appeared before him. It was like a vision. A sporti, it's called. And great personalities can do this. There's other examples. He appeared before him and said, "Don't worry, Maharaj. You will be successful. Just give the teachings of Lord Chaitanya and liberally give the holy name, and everything will be all right. I guarantee I will be with you." And then the vision broke. So that's a living person who by mercy showed himself. And that may happen also for us, where the name which we say is a person, there's some realization. There's different ways of how that can happen, but it happens. It happens not necessarily for the highest of high devotees. It can happen where one feels, when you turn to Krishna in a very feeling manner, you feel something. There's some reciprocation. So cultivate that reciprocal relationship through the medium, back to the early parts, of service. A mood of humble service to the name and to the Vaishnavas. And then this is the last slide. Then the connection with Krishna is made through the very simple activity of chanting through the medium of the spiritual master. I mean, the medium is the holy name, and the name of the person are the same, but Krishna likes it when he's approached through his dear representatives, his disciplic succession representatives. So this is a little quick summary of the concluding discussions we had during the 2019 Festival of the Holy Name. And I thought I would keep it short so that those of you that wanted to discuss anything about chanting, whether it's part of this presentation or just on your own experience, that's fine. Now, I stopped you from asking your question, so you can go ahead and ask. You wanted to ask something? Do you remember what you were going to ask? Okay.
We wanted to answer earlier.
Okay. Okay. So any topics you'd like to share and discuss a little bit while we're together?
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj. The statement that was there, steadiness requires the faith and practice. The faith is there, practice is there, but the mind is, even though mind is attracted to something other than hearing, even though I'm chanting, mind is generally attracted to what it likes. It doesn't like the holy name. So the practice is there, but it's really struggle. What am I missing? Like, how do I get that absorption of the mind into the holy name?
Your question was answered here. With faith, you hear. There isn't an alternative. With faith, you hear. The main thing when chanting is hearing the sound. The difficulty is not hearing because I'm not attracted. But the solution to not attracted is you hear. So there's some discipline or some practice that's involved in that hearing process. That's the abhyasa. This, same Patanjali Yoga Sutra. With devotion. So you strive. Supposing somebody had some accident and some part of their body was damaged. So I know somebody that happened. I was one of the persons that happened to, but I know other people that happened. So you go to a doctor and what do I need? You don't need surgery, you need physical therapy, okay. So when you have physical therapy, you can't move so readily. And then they find out what you can do, and they tell you to do, 10 of these and 15 of those and 3 times a day. And it's very little, but you do it because you want to get normal again. Okay, very good. Now it goes up to 15 of those and 30 of those. By practice, because this is just motor skills or muscular development. But the same principle applies in spiritual life. So it's by practice. And if it's not developing, then that means you're not being attentive. You're not hearing. The mouth is going and the mind is going. And the ear is not hearing. So anything, it takes practice. And you practice and practice and practice. Prabhupada's phrase is, practice becomes second nature. You can say the conditioned nature is distracted and absorption is the practice, becomes second nature. Take practice. Giriraj Maharaj told me a story once. He was with Prabhupada chanting. He not just told me, it was a group of us at a japa retreat. And he was with Prabhupada chanting, and Prabhupada was stopped early in the morning. And he then took his beads out of his bead bag and held them in the air and looked at his beads, looked at Giriraj and said, "It took me 30 years to perfect my chanting." And then put his beads back and his bead back and continued. And Giriraj Maharaj was thinking, wow, 30 years. And then, as he was explaining this, I've been chanting for 40 years, and I wish I could be perfect in 40 years. So however long it takes. But you continue striving with faith, and there's progress. There's intermittent, there's unsteady ups and downs, the hills and the valleys and all of that. But overall, it's progress. It's the effort, and then necessarily also calling for mercy. Because one who makes effort realizes I can't do this on my own. And that's part of practice, is you're calling for mercy from great personalities and from Krishna himself, and etc. You've been chanting for 30 years yet? Okay. Let's follow Prabhupada. Here we go. Behind you. No.
My question is, Maharaj, is like, according to Krishna, we are living in this Maya, like a world which is temporarily.
Yes.
So, with chanting and faith, is it possible to go beyond this Maya and see from fourth dimension? Is it possible?
Oh yeah. Not only possible. That's the promise. It may be gradual, but that's the promise. It will carry you. The name will carry you. Just have to be submissive to the name in submissive service.
So my question is like, this practice, the practice is pulled by some gravitational force of earth. So I'm unable to like practice more. Continuous practice is missing.
Okay, well, continuous doesn't mean 24/7. Continuous means uninterruptedly over a period of time. You set a vrata, a standard. For this much time, I'm going to rest. For this much time, I'm going to bathe. For that much time, I'm going to go to the office. And for each thing we do, we have some blocks of time. So some block of my time is each day is some spiritual practice, and prolonged is over a period of time.
So does Maha Mantra is enough, or like we should do something beyond it?
Well, you should take Krishna Prasadam. That's not a problem. And you should serve the devotees. At our Sunday program, did you come to the Potomac Temple? We covered the topic of Lord Chaitanya's teachings. There were 3 things mentioned. Jivadaya, compassion to living entities. Namaruchi, taste for the holy name. Vaishnav Seva. And so, continue to hear from Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, because Hari Katha is the perfect complement for the chanting of the name. And that will help nourish the Vaishnav Seva. So, those are some things. Take Prasadam, hear Hari Katha, means read Prabhupada's books, and discuss in settings where you can discuss with others. And do service to the Vaishnavas in any way that you can. What's reasonable? In any way that you can, you do that. Here's another answer to your question. It's from Chaitanya Charitamrita, where the devotees from Bengal went to Puri for Rath Yatra, several hundred of them. And they stayed for the 4 months of the rainy season, and when there was time to go back, Lord Chaitanya would meet with groups of them. So one of them was a group from Kalina Gram, and they're householders. So this head spokesperson said, we're householders, we're attached, we don't know the purpose of life. Can you tell us what our duty is? That was the question, more or less. And Lord Chaitanya said, as far as possible, chant continuously, and whenever there's some opportunities, serve the Vaishnavas. These two things. But same Vaishnav Seva. And then they asked, well, how do we know who's the Vaishnav? And he gave 3 answers in 3 consecutive years. The beginning Vaishnav, the intermediate Vaishnav, the topmost Vaishnav. They're all Vaishnavas. And according to one's position, one serves. One has relationships. According to position, we offer respect. According to relationships. So those are some nice instructions in addition to chanting. Take good care of your family. Some of these children are your children. Which ones?
These two.
You? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And you also? Oh, both of you, brother, sister? She's older, right? You're older? She's older. Yes, okay. Okay.
So one other question, like I want to hear from your words, like continuously I see you, like I follow like in the YouTube everything. I was still wonder. I know, like I want to hear from you, like how do you get this much energy? Like sometimes even for listening I get tired. How do you get this much energy for?
It comes from hearing, because there's spiritual energy or spiritual strength in sound. And if you're hearing spiritual sound, but you're distracted, then it doesn't. The connection is not the same. And then you fall asleep. So hear, and you'll be more alert. Similar to your question. Okay. Anything else?
So, Maharaj, you were mentioning about chanting from the heart. So, does it mean that we chant with intention and chant with feeling? Or is there anything more to that?
It can mean different things. It does mean different things to different people. I've been asked this question on different occasions. Acting from the heart or chanting from the heart can mean different things to different people, and they define it in different ways. One of the ways is something that's deep-seated, that doesn't change. And we may be more in touch with it or less in touch with it, but it doesn't change. That's like who we really are. That's, the intention of connecting with who you really are and your your lasting, eternal relationship with Krishna, that's from the heart. I've seen written descriptions of what connecting with the heart means. Different people have different ideas. So it can be what you said plus. One of the main things is this. There's, Vaisheshika Prabhu. So there's attention. That's what the mind does. And then there's intention. That's what the heart does. And attention flows from intention. What's really important to you, deep inside, that's the heart. And stay with it, because otherwise, we get distracted and we're not in alignment. We're not from the heart. The mind connected to the heart, and the body connected to the mind and the heart. Something else?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. So, connecting with Krishna might be way up there, but when we have the spiritual master and the Vaishnavas whom we are serving, if we, like while chanting, if we can connect with them, do we have, is it?
Well, what does connect with them while chanting mean? It's like this image that's on the screen. There's, let's say you're in a room, or, during the pandemic time, there was lots of virtual japa classes. And devotees that I know, devotees that have been chanting for 15, 20 years, found connection with getting on a virtual japa class, a little inspirational message at the beginning, and then just chanting where other devotees were chanting. And it helped their chanting. But behind the persons who are also chanting, there's Krishna. That's the image. When there's instructions and there's Sangha, etc., behind both, it's Krishna. So it may be easier to realize, feeling energized by being in the association of devotees or being in service to the devotees. But the energizing, the energizer, is Krishna, because it's pleasing to Krishna. Anything else? You have something? No.
Amen.
My first question is, how can I be compassionate?
Now, are you asking what does compassion look like, or how can you become more compassionate than you were yesterday?
How can I be more compassionate?
Okay. Well, one of the best ways is by associating with those who are compassionate. You take on the qualities like those with whom you associate. Supposing in school there's a bully. You know one? Oh, you're lucky. Good. But anyway, supposing there's unwholesome association of some kind. You just associate with those unwholesome people, and after some time you become like them. So it's good to keep wholesome association, because you'll develop qualities like they have. They'll become good friends, because they're good friends. They're wholesome people, good to have friendship with. So compassion. Another besides your association is reading about very exemplary, compassionate persons. When I was kind of a little older than you, but new to Krishna consciousness, one of my heroes was Prahlad Maharaj. You know who was Prahlad Maharaj? So what I really liked about Prahlad was he was compassionate. He risked a lot to just speak about life of devotion to his friends when he knew he was going to get slammed by his teachers and then his father. But he wanted to reach out to them and give them something that was worthy of them. And then when his father was killed by Hiranyakashipu, he asked Lord Nrsingadev, please excuse my father for all of his offenses to me and to everybody else. Please give him liberation. He tried to kill him, but he was compassionate towards his father. And then further he said, there's nothing that I need, because I just have to remember you, but my one anxiety, my one hurt feeling is so many people are misdirected and confused and lost in this world. That's my anxiety. I want to do something for them. So he was like a hero. So find heroes in scripture or wherever, and hear about them, remember them, speak about them, describe them. This is a teaching that Ramanujacharya gives. You develop qualities like them by your absorption in their good example. Find examples, role models, and look up to them, remember them, speak about them, read about them. But your day-to-day, at best, is, association with those who are compassionate. The very simple principle. If it, it's been, the temperature here has been like really crazy, but when it got really cold and you want to get warm, really simple. Stand near a fire or heater, you get warm. And if you want the quality of compassion, you take association of those who are compassionate. And the best compassion is the spiritual compassion, because that takes care of everything else. It's a nice question. Your second question?
How can I control my anger?
He's chuckling behind his mask. Do you get mad at him sometimes? Because he gets under your nerves and you don't like it. Do you become angry? Well, mode of goodness, forgiveness. Here's a pan scale. Over here is anger, and over here is forgiveness. Put something over here on this side. Learn to forgive, and it takes away anger. Supposing you did something that somebody didn't like, and they got angry at you, what would you want them to do? You'd like them to forgive you, wouldn't it? I mean, supposing you knew that you did something that wasn't so good, you said something or did something that wasn't so good, and you wanted them to not feel badly towards you, you'd like them to forgive you. So, let go of the anger by forgiveness. That's a mode of goodness quality. So then, how do I develop the mode of goodness more? Supposing this is like an irritation spot, the anger spot. So develop goodness more in your life anyways, and even in other areas. And it'll strengthen goodness in the anger area. So some goodness features are: be very clean. That's a goodness quality. Be truthful. That's a goodness quality. Exercise, develop, like here, this other question, compassion. That's a mode of goodness quality. Study of the scriptures, that's a mode of goodness quality. Control of the senses, be regular in your activities. Like, don't stay up really late at night. You just have a fixed time that you more or less become regular in your habits. That's a mode of goodness quality. What you eat and how you eat. Eating foods is a big one. So eat moderately and eat foods that are in the mode of goodness. So learn what those foods are and prefer those foods. I'm sure your parents will look after that one for you. And when you make a mistake and become angry, then you realize it later, you go to the person and you apologize. I just got a letter today from somebody. One couple and another couple had some disagreement with the third couple. And it kind of exploded. And it went on for a whole year. And then the couple that was on the receiving end of that explosion processed it and wrote saying, we processed it And we were holding some feelings before for this reason, that reason, but those feelings are gone. We let go of those feelings. And we just want to have a proper relationship with you again. The past is the past. It's the forgiveness message. The past is the past. We don't hold you responsible. We're responsible. And we'd like to have a nice relationship again. And then one of the parties who received that communication from them said, they also are asking for forgiveness for the wrongs that we have done. And, here's the reason why. And, there was a meeting of the minds. So when you apologize for becoming angry, and you mean it, and even if later you become angry again, but you mean it when you apologize, it helps you to overcome anger. But in general, that's a mode of goodness principle also.
How can I concentrate on what I'm doing?
Control of the mind is made possible by sound. I'm a firm believer in it. Everyone has some capacity for concentration. Concentration is a factor of the mind. When there's something that's important to you, it's easier to concentrate. Something that's maybe less important to you, it's a little harder to concentrate. But if you learn spiritual practice to move your concentration capacity towards the Supreme, then everything else downstream from the Supreme, your concentration becomes better. It's like I said, to the adults, when chanting goes nicely, the day goes nicely. Their work, their social activities, everything goes better. You can concentrate better when your intelligence is clear, and when your intelligence will become most clear when you're spiritually connected. It's just a fact. Spiritually connected people have very clear intelligence, and they can concentrate on what they're doing. That's the best.
Is Krishna watching us every day?
Well, your brother's watching you. But Krishna's in your heart. So not only every day, it's at every moment, like right now. Because he's in the heart, he's the witness. You know that, right? The witness. In the Upanishads, it says, just like in a tree there might be two birds, and within the body there's two observing personalities. One is the bird that's jumping from branch to branch, enjoying the fruits from the tree, and the other is just the witness observing the bird that's jumping from branch to branch. So the tree that has its branches is the body, and we're trying to become the enjoyer of the fruits of our activities. And there's a witness, always, noting everything. That's Krishna. So he's noting everything always. Okay. Nice questions. Thoughtful girl. You're blessed.
Can you recommend me to read? Can you recommend me which canto to read first in the Bhagavad?
Wow.
With them?
Well, how old are you? What's your
9.
age? You're 9. There's a children's version and there's an adult version. Do you like the adult or the children's version?
Children.
Okay. Arudha is a very nice lady. She had 2 sons. Both of them became PhD graduates from Oxford University. They're very bright young men, now married. But she has taken on the project of writing Srimad Bhagavatam for children, rewriting it with illustrations and language that's simple, but it's nice. So, and she's a really strong believer in Srimad Bhagavatam for children as a way of education, for language, and etc., etc., and spiritualization. So, somebody here can help her get a copy of Aruta's Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay. Okay, you work it out. And until then, until you get a copy, you can start with Canto 1. That's a good place to start. You haven't read Krishna book? Krishna book. That's a little easier. It's 10th canto, but it's written in language that worldly people can also understand and appreciate. There's lots of Krishna stories. Your brother will like it too. You read him the Krishna stories. He'll be happy. And they won't get angry at each other. Krishna book. Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Nice going. You have something online? Okay. Let's get back behind you online.
This question is from Vaishnava Devidasi. Dear Maharaj, how to break through unfavorable elements of mechanical chanting or mechanical practice?
No, this text from Patanjali tells it all. Every day, prolonged period of time with faith, and you can break through. Practice is required, and that definition is a definition of abhyasa, that which makes a yoga-defined standard for what is practice. Those three things. Okay, I think we're done. Srila Prabhupada, you have something. Would you like to add something to this discussion? Okay, let's give him the microphone.
I have a question. So you're saying like this from practicing, like how can we like practice like faster, like we can like understand and like make a skill easy, like you're like this skill is like applied almost everywhere, like in school, like you have to practice for like every subject, like in school, like if you have like a hard time learning a new subject, like how can we like achieve it in a faster pace? Like, and how do we stay away from distraction? Like, those are my two questions.
I didn't understand the question. Can somebody else, did you understand the question?
I think he's telling like sometimes, yeah, probably.
Namaskar.
Hare Krishna.
So he's trying to say that you told us that practicing the chanting become more near to anything, whatever.
Becomes more what?
We can reach faster to our aim or whatever we want to achieve, or by practicing.
If you practice, you have from spiritual well-being, material well-being follows. Mm-hmm. Like a shadow follows the object that casts a shadow. That was what I was saying. Mm-hmm. So if you want to achieve, just like her, concentration, then spiritual concentration will help all kinds of concentration. From its spiritual well-being, material well-being follows, like a shadow. So now, with having said that, what's the question?
So how to practice something new, whether it's as a student, it's a new subject, or in material world, like if I'm a new follower of, let's suppose, of a Krishna. So he's trying to say, like, how to practice to achieve that fast.
Oh, how do you get in the fast lane?
Yes.
And how do you avoid staying distracted and doing procrastination?
Distraction and procrastination. Those are big obstacles. Tendency for procrastination repeats itself. And meeting of obstacles, there's different people who respond to obstacles in different ways, but sometimes obstacles mean, just like you throw in the towel and I'm not going to do this because there's too many obstacles. So the determination, here's something that it's described in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. By practicing, voluntarily accepting some austerity. Like, here's a little example. For everybody in the room, including, our youngsters over here, but everybody in the room. Rising early. It's easy to just lie there. And it's not as easy to just at a certain time, early, I'm up. And I'm up, and it's easier to get up when I know I'm looking forward to something. And now is my opportunity to improve myself. And improve myself for a spiritual practitioner. My spiritual practice is going to bring my spiritual well-being, which will bring about material well-being following like a shadow. And I'm looking forward to that. So voluntarily accepting some austerities or some inconvenience, it helps to strengthen determination. I mean, one of the things that we do, for example, and other than us, people also follow Ekadasi. Ekadasi is a certain phase of the moon, and on those Ekadasi days, we observe some austerity, very simple one. Or it can be a little stronger, or it can be a little stronger. So each of us, the minimum is we don't take beans and grains. And we try to increase our chanting. So a do not and a do. And then every Ekadasi, how many times the phase of the moon passes. So it's a little, and that little, steadily over a period of time, it becomes a way of life. And then it helps to strengthen determination because I'm regulated with it. And there's reasons behind it. There's scriptural reasons. So it helps to strengthen determination. And then, the obstacle of procrastination or inattention or laziness or something, determination gets stronger. And then one can move forward. And another answer, just like the answer to her question of becoming more compassionate, stay in the association of those who are very determined. And if you start to procrastinate, they'll tap you on the shoulder gently and say, "Hey, do you need some help? I'd like to help you get this thing going. Would you need some help?" Anyway, if the relationship is right and people won't take it in a sour way, they'll take it in a kindness way. And then procrastination is checked. I heard a TED talk that somebody was speaking on the topic of procrastination. It was really funny. But, there are people that know about that shortcoming, and hearing from them can help one overcome it, applying the things that they're saying. You're very patient. How old are you?
6.
6. You're a pretty calm little 6-year-old. Compliments to you. It's probably not easy for you to sit there through all this stuff, but you're doing a good job. Thank you. Anything from you? No? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.